Come. Today on the show, I've got the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S 4MATIC Plus Coupe. Well, that sounds like quite a mouthful, doesn't it? But then again, the GLE 63S, well, I simply can't get my head wrapped around it. Take for instance its counterparts, its peers in the segment, the X6 Coupe, the Audi Q8. Well, they all seem pretty strange, don't they? But then again, sometimes the strange can be very fascinating. And the only way to understand that fascination is for you to immerse yourself in that subject. It's interesting to note the GLE in its stock form is Mercedes-Benz India's highest selling SUV, and it has sold some 15,000 units ever since it was introduced into the market a few years ago. Not a bad number by any measure. But the other interesting bit is that the GLE, spec'd as an AMG, is also one of the highest selling AMG SUVs in the country. And it's done this because of several iterations, several variants of the GLE AMG versions that have come into India, the last being the GLE 53. Now, however, what you're getting is a proper AMG. So there are three areas that are quite fascinating in the GLE 63S. Is of course the drivetrain. The engine under the hood of this GLE is a full-fledged, a full-fat AMG V8 block. Then of course is the performance aspect. This isn't a slouch. When you put a V8 under the hood of any Mercedes-Benz car, what you get is absolutely stellar performance. And then there are the running components, suspension and its traction abilities. This may be an SUV on steroids, and some pretty strong ones. But AMG has also added a whole new dimension to this. Because if you had to take away those low profile tires and put on proper off-road tires, at least an all-terrain profile, well, the GLE 63S will take you almost anywhere. The V8 bi-turbo engine sitting under that hood, that's built by a Mr. Stahl, well, that outputs about 612 horsepower with an enormous 850 Newton meters of torque. The Mercedes-Benz India claims that this car is capable of doing 3.8 seconds to the ton. On our test, however, we're just a little slower, 4.2 seconds. 0.4 of a second off that claimed pace, which isn't too bad. What's also unique to the GLE 63S is that for the first time in India, we're getting the 48-volt mild hybrid system on an AMG. And what it does effectively is it reduces tailpipe emissions, but it also gives a boost of power, almost 22 horsepower additional to the system to enhance performance. So in a way, that mild hybrid system, it's the best of both worlds. Performance and efficiency. The one biggest fear I have when driving any AMG, and especially in the current environment, of course now that elections are coming on, fuel prices haven't gone up, they've been brought down, but that is an interim phase and we're expecting fuel prices to go up. And with an AMG, I can guarantee you, if you're driving an SUV of this sort regularly, any AMG for that matter, regularly, you would be quite a frequent visitor to a petrol station. And the GLE 63 AMG is no stranger to that. So my one fear is the amount of money that I have to pump in just to fuel this car up. However, here's what AMG has done this time in the GLE 63S. You get cylinder deactivation, which means rather than the 8 cylinders operating all the time, if you are coasting, driving at, well, let's say about 1500 to about 1800 RPM, The GLE 63S switches off 4 of its cylinders in that V8 bank and well just uses 4 to deliver power, and that improves efficiency. Now when I say improve efficiency, don't expect this to cross 10 kilometers per litre. Nonetheless, since this morning, and we've been on a shoot, I've been consistently seeing roughly about 7 to 8 kilometers per litre, which for a car of this order is quite impressive. The interesting addition on this dashboard, of course, is right here on the steering wheel, where you get these 2 drive selector knobs on either of the steering arms. The circular knob allows you to flip through the various drive modes that are there, from comfort to sport, sport plus, and you also get race mode. However, that's not all. You also get an individual mode that has got, well, multiple selections inside that, almost 5 different parameters that you can select within that. It can also give you traction for slippery conditions, traction for trail driving, and traction for sand driving. So like I said, this isn't just an AMG for the road, this is an AMG that you can have an enormous amount of fun with almost anywhere. I'm trying pretty hard to drive the 63S as smoothly as I can, simply because that exhaust note, well, I'm on sport mode, and on sport mode, the exhaust, well, it opens up all of its baffles and you go into powerful mode, and then you won't hear a thing. What that 48 volt onboard electrical system also does is that it powers the adaptive dampers. So flipping through the various drive modes also adjusts the suspension, not just the engine output, but also the suspension, the steering effort, and of course the variety of traction control maps as well. The suspension is key because in comfort, the GLE 63, despite having those enormous and fairly taut dampers, the ride comfort is exemplary. This is a Mercedes-Benz by any measure. Now the GLE 63S, well, for the coupe-like body style, for the coupe-like SUV, you'd assume that there isn't a lot of space in this cabin, especially here at the rear bench. But as you can see, I've adjusted the driver's seat to my height, and now I've got myself into the rear bench. And there is enough room, there's enough of knee room, there's space under that seat to shove your feet inside, and of course there's plenty of headroom for me as well. However, if you're above 6 feet tall, then this could reduce significantly. But what I do like in this coupe-like structure is that the roof slopes right behind this kink here in the roof lining. After this kink, the slope is fairly acute. But otherwise, this cabin is a perfectly good place to be in, especially if you're doing a nice long journey. What the GLE 63S also has is active stabilization and active damper control. So essentially, it, well, negates any body roll. However, I've observed this while driving in Indian conditions especially, is that over some bad or rather rough road surfaces, slight undulations, pockmarked surfaces, well, you do get a bit of a jitter in the GLE 63S. It is a little disturbing and will come to your attention. It definitely feels like there is something wrong with the suspension. But in fact, what the GLE 63S is actually doing is stabilizing the car, trying to negate the effects of those bad sections, those rough sections, to improve ride quality, to improve ride comfort in the best way possible. What I'm also very impressed with in the GLE 63S is its steering system. And I love the way it varies. I mean, you can automatically feel the weight shift depending on the driving situation, whether you're driving it calmly or whether you're driving it aggressively. Step on the gas pedal, and of course the weight automatically gets heavier on the steering wheel. But ease back, smoothen out your driving style, and well, the steering becomes light effortless and very easy to help maneuver this car in tight urban spaces. Being a thoroughbred AMG, the GLE 63S, well, it gets high performance, a composite braking system, and this uses a 400 ventilated disc at the front that is acted upon by a 6-pot caliper, and you get 345 solid discs at the rear which have got a single pot caliper. But braking is just brilliant. Now on our braking tests, from 100 to 0, we stopped within 44 meters, which is quite impressive. Keep in mind again, large SUV, heavy SUV, carrying a lot of momentum, carrying a lot of torque. It requires the best braking system it can get. It requires optimum stopping power, and well, those massive discs, front and rear, deliver on all counts. I'm not a big fan of the coupe styled SUVs. I do think there is some amount of essence lost in translation. The rear ends look too bulky, the sloping roof line looks too quirky on an SUV of this sort. The front, well, it's never really looked impressive enough for me. And that's why this is a bit of a strange SUV to me. But like I said right at the beginning, it's only when you immerse yourself into the GLE 63S do you realize what it is capable of, just how much it is capable of, just how much this SUV can turn your world upside down.